Coach Locksley says the Terps are ready to win a Big Ten championship. Is that true? We'll tell you on Locked On Terps.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Trey Moore, co-host of Locked On Terps. I'm joined by my other co-host, Zach Kurlander, and we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about Coach Mike Locksley's comments about Maryland being in position to win a Big Ten championship now. And it's going to be an awesome episode, and we're also going to talk some basketball recruiting. But to start, what do the Maryland players have to do, and what expectations do we have to have for specific players for them to actually be realistically have any chance of winning a Big Ten championship? And I think it all starts with Taulia Tagovailoa. He's going to have to be a first-team Big Ten type of player. Last year he was second team, but he's going to have to be a first-team Big Ten type of player. He's going to have to be an all-conference type of guy. He's probably going to have to be better than J.J. McCarthy and Drew Aller, the other notable quarterbacks in the conference. He's definitely going to have to be one of the best players in the country.
Yeah, I definitely think he's under the most pressure this year than any other year. He's had some good years in his first 2 years, 3 years. So this year he really has to hone in, and I also think that there's a chance that he could maybe be a Heisman player. I don't know. He's got all the potential in the world. We have the skill position players, but he really needs to, cut down the turnovers this year, focus on reading the defenses a little bit better, staying more patient. But if he has a really good year, I definitely think this team can win the Big Ten.
It's a bold statement, but yeah, it all starts with him. He has to be great, and then maybe the best offensive player returning and the best overall player on the team might be Roman Hemby. The sophomore running back had a great freshman campaign, a great redshirt freshman campaign, led the Power 5 conference in yards for all-around, all-purpose yards for freshmen, and he's an explosive back. He's going to be one of our best players. If we want to realistically compete for a Big Ten championship, not only him, but the whole Maryland running back room has to be really good this year. But it starts with Roman Hemby. He was awesome last year, and he's going to have to be awesome again.
Yeah, I think Hemby can really thrive on first and second downs. I think we should be running the ball a lot more in the early downs, maybe to make it a little bit easier on Tagovailoa and the receiving core. But to go along with that, Kaden Prather, the transfer from West Virginia, he's got to be elite this year. We really need him to be good. He was pretty solid at West Virginia. Obviously, we had guys leave like Raheem Jarrett and Dante Demas and Copeland, so we really need him to be good this year. And I think he will probably be the second receiver on the team, but we'll see how it goes. But we definitely need him this year.
Yeah, Kaden Prather, he's a good player. He's put up a lot of good numbers at West Virginia, but can he take another step and be a legit number one and an NFL type of guy? You look at him, and he's 6'4", and he's a really good athlete, and he can move. That's what excites me a lot about him. You can put him outside on the X wide receiver spot and just let him play outside, let Jaishawn Jones play in the slot, and he should be a really good player for us. But he's going to have to prove to be a number one wide receiver if we want to have any realistic shot of winning the Big Ten championship. And then you go on to the defense a little bit. And Jaishawn Barham, who was a freshman last year but played and started and was already one of the best players on the defense, has been one of the most highly coveted recruits Maryland and Coach Locksley has gotten ever. And he's an awesome player. He's going to be an NFL-type player, but he's only a sophomore this year. But he's got to be an all-Big Ten type of player, and I expect him to be. He's one of the best players in the Big Ten. He was a freshman All-American. He's a really good player, and he's a good athlete, and he's going to be an NFL player one day.
Yeah, I definitely think Barham's going to have to take a step up this year. He was a stud last year, don't get me wrong, but there are a lot of good running backs in this conference, so we're going to need him to fill gaps. So Jaishawn Barham, I think, is going to be a really good player. Like you said, he's got all the potential in the world. He'll probably end up being in the NFL, but he was only a freshman. He's got a lot of game to improve on, so I'm definitely excited. But to go into the secondary a little bit, Breude has to be one of the best safeties in the country. Bo and Dante probably could be the best safety duo in college football, probably the Big Ten. So if we can have them lock it down on the secondary, obviously we lost some corners. Deontay Banks went to the draft. So I think he definitely needs to be a stud this year, and I think he has all the tools, and he definitely is primed for his best season yet.
Yeah, Bo Breude has to be elite, and Bo and Dante have to be one of the best safety duos in college football. There's no other way if we're going to have a chance at winning the Big Ten. And then you go to the offensive line. Delmar Glaze is the only returner on the line, but people say he could have gotten drafted last year. He's a really good player. He's going to be our left tackle this year. He's going to protect Taulia, but he's going to be an NFL type of player too. But he has to be an all Big Ten type of guy. He has to lead the offensive line, and we're really going to need him this year if we're going to want to have a chance at taking down the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Penn States, because they have good pass rushers on both sides of the defensive end. So we're going to need him to lock down one side at least for us to have any chance.
Yeah, definitely. I think a problem with the team last year was actually the offensive line. We had a lot of struggles, a lot of moving pieces, and it gave less time for Tagovailoa and the receivers to work. And honestly, the running back still did a really good job. Obviously, Hemby killed it. So if he can step in and be a solidified, all Big Ten left tackle, I think that does so much for our offense.
No, yeah, for sure. And then we move over to back to the secondary again, and Jaquon Shepard, the transfer from Cincinnati, taking the place of Deonte Banks. We absolutely need him to step up and be great. He was an all-conference player for Cincinnati. He's a really good player. People are talking about him being a draft pick. But last year, Maryland had one of the best cornerback rooms with Jacorian Bennett and Deonte Banks. And can Jaquon Shepard step up and take one of the roles? We need at least one of the people to be shut down, because that's probably the biggest question mark on the team. He's going to take one of the cornerback slots, but who's going to take the other one? Is it going to be Corey Coley, who's a junior now, who we need to step up, who played a lot in the bowl games when Deonte and Jacorian were gone? Or is it going to be someone else? We're going to really need to see who's going to step up in that cornerback room. But if we're playing in the Big Ten, especially if we're going to compete with Ohio State, we're going to have to find a way to stop Marvin Harrison and Emeka Mbuka. We're going to have solid play from the corners.
Yeah, definitely. I think Jaquon Shepard has all the potential. Like you said, we have a lot of holes in the secondary. I'm a little bit concerned about the secondary, but thankfully we have a good safety duo. So I think it could make it easier to put our corners in zone packages so they don't have to play as much man press. So I'm excited to see Shepard this year. Hopefully, Cincinnati corners are pretty good. Sauce and Kobe Bryant just went into the NFL, so maybe he can take after those guys and come and be an impact player. On to the defensive line. Defensive line has got to be better. Last year, our defensive line was terrible. Our run defense wasn't that great. We got Jordan Phillips, the Tennessee transfer, nose tackle. Will help definitely in the run game. So what do you think about the addition of Phillips?
Yeah, Phillips is a big body, exactly what we need. Really the difference in the Big Ten is up front, offensive line, defensive line, especially when you play in Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State. Those people have dudes up front, and they get guys that are drafted. If you look at Michigan, they were voted the top offensive line this year. You look at Ohio State, they had Paris Johnson was drafted to the NFL last year, and they had another tackle drafted to the NFL. So you have to have guys up front, and that's exactly what Jordan Phillips does from Tennessee. We recruited him out of high school, but he's a guy that can plug up the middle. He's going to be a really good player, immediate impact player. And then you look at Donnell Brown, who actually was a transfer, and he's a really good player too. We need him to be able to rush the passer. And same with Quashon Fuller. We're going to need him to step up. He transferred from Florida State a couple years ago. He played a little bit last year, but Quashon Fuller absolutely dominated in the spring game, and we're going to need more of that. But that's pretty much what I would say about what the players are going to have to do. Some of our bigger names. Obviously, there's a lot more pieces to the puzzle, and there's a lot of other impact players, but those are just some of those guys that I think are going to really have to step up and play at an elite level. But next, we're going to talk about the schedule and what wins we have to have if we're going to have any chance of winning the Big Ten championship, like Coach Locksley says. And we'll talk about it next after this ad from LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That is why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. A lot of people need jobs right now, and if you want to find someone amazing for your company, LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. To post your job for free, terms and conditions apply. So now we're back, and let's talk about what has to happen with the schedule for Maryland to have any chance of winning the Big Ten championship. And it starts off easy. Obviously, we play Towson first game of the year, and then we go to Charlotte. I expect those to be wins and easy wins. I expect us to see a lot of players in those games, keep the guys fresh, rotate a lot of bodies in and out. And then the third game of the year, we play Virginia. That's going to be one of the bigger games of the year because Virginia's a team we compete for recruiting a lot. We're DMV guys, but we're going to need to beat Virginia, obviously.
Yeah, we're going to have to take care of those 3 games. I mean, there's no excuses if you don't win any of those 3 games. You're playing in the Big Ten. If you can't beat Towson, Charlotte, and UVA, then I don't know what's going to happen this year. But unfortunately, the Big Ten is probably the second best, if not the best, football conference in the nation. So you're going to play Michigan State, Indiana, Illinois, Northwestern, Nebraska, Rutgers. Those are games that, you can get most of those wins. We can beat Michigan State. We can beat Indiana, beat Illinois, and et cetera. But we're really going to have to take it a game at a time. Going to have to play hard on road games. It's going to be tough. The Big Ten, college students get out there for big games. So we're going to have to take care of those wins. Hopefully, maybe only lose one of those if everything goes right. Because then you obviously have Ohio State, Penn State, and you got Michigan. So you're going to need help from other teams. But we got to really focus on those 6 teams and hopefully get 5 of them, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll get all of them. I think we're better than, pretty much every team there that you stated. I mean,
yeah,
you never know what can happen.
It's
Maryland,
so anything can happen.
Yeah, Maryland could definitely drop one easily. It's probably probable that they'll drop at least one. But we're going to need to get every one of those if we want a chance, I think. Definitely. And then what happens next is, we're going to have to beat 2 of the big 3. Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State is a big 3. They're the leaders of the conference. They're the best teams. They're the most talent, best recruited teams, best coach teams.
Definitely.
If we want any chance, we're probably going to have to beat 2 of them, and then we're going to need some help. Or maybe we can squeak out one and somebody upset someone else, and then they beat each other up maybe, and maybe we have a chance for a 2-loss team, but I doubt it. I think it's going to have to be – we're going to have to be 2 of them. And if you really look at it, look back at the Michigan game last year. We lost by 7 points, and we fumbled the first punt of the game or the first kick of the game right off the bat. They kicked it off to us, and we fumbled it on the 5-yard line, and that's the difference right there. And they went up 7-0 before the game even had started, and we ended up losing by 7. So we played Michigan close the whole game, excuse me. So those are the type of games that we're going to have to win. Same thing with Ohio State. We're going to have to squeak it out instead of losing the close one. And 2 of the 3 of those games are home. So if when's the year going to happen, it has to be this year.
Yeah. I think we play good teams really well. Like you said with Michigan and Ohio State, we play them close. But then there are some plays that honestly ruin the game for us, like the fumble and the Penn State or the Michigan game, that you said. And then Ohio State, we played them really close for the first 2 to 3 quarters last year, but then all of a sudden we just collapsed. So if we can have 4 good football quarters and we can play tough and honestly limit turnovers and make them make mistakes, then we can honestly beat any of those 3 teams. I would have to say we probably need to get at least 2 of those 3 games if they want to have a chance of winning the Big Ten, unless Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State all play each other and they all lose and then they all win one or something like that. But realistically, it's probably not our year this year, but anything can happen, and I'm still looking forward to it because we play tough teams close. So anything can happen in those games.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it starts with stopping the run. If you go back and watch the Michigan game, we got gassed in the run game. Could not stop Blake Corum, who's one of the best players in the country this year, and he's back this year. And they also have Edwards, who didn't even play against us. But Blake Corum absolutely gashed us, and that was the difference in the game. If we
Yeah.
could have stopped it a little bit more, then I think we win the game, but we just couldn't stop the run. And I think that's what we're talking about with the addition of Jordan Phillips really helps us this year. But stopping the run is going to be really important, especially, and then at Penn State too, they got those two who were freshman running backs last year in Singleton and Allen. Those two guys are really good players. If we're going to have a chance to beat Penn State, we're going to have to stop the run.
I mean, when is the Big Ten never packed with running backs? I feel like every team has a really good running back. So you're not going to win games when you're giving up 200-plus rushing yards. It's just not going to happen. So if we want to beat Penn State and Michigan, Phillips, like you said, is going to have to be a huge impact player. But you can't rely on one person on the 11-team defense. Everyone's going to have to tackle, honestly. Secondary is going to have to be ready. Linebackers going to have to be ready. Defensive line. Hopefully it's a lot better than last year. I just remember Corum just running all around us and make us running in circles. So hopefully we get a little bit better in that aspect, but Phillips will definitely help.
Yeah, Jordan Phillips will definitely help, but the Big Ten, like you said, it's a running conference. That's what it's been for a while. And I mean, obviously it's changed a little bit. Ohio State's got amazing wide receivers, but every team is
throwing the ball. I'd be throwing the ball with Harrison and Bucco. So
yeah. So every team has a good running back stable, and that's what we're gonna have to do. I think stopping the run comes first. But next we're gonna talk about a little update on the Maryland basketball recruiting after this short break. All right, so the Maryland basketball 2024 class is off to a slow start, but it could pick up really fast, and it all starts with Derek Queen right now, who is projected to go to Maryland by all the recruiting website. He's 100% crystal ball to Maryland on 247, and he's a 5-star, top 10 player in the country, 6'9", power forward, is legitimately one of the best players in the country and an instant impact type of guy.
I would be willing to say he's probably the most dominant big man in the 2024 class. I don't want to get my hopes up, but it sounds like he really is going to come to Maryland, and I don't remember the last time we've had a dominant center. Maybe Diamond Stone, Bruno Fernando. Yeah. So having Tarek Queen on
those two, yeah.
I mean, he's probably more talented than both of them. So having him on the team would definitely help. But I'm a little worried about the NIL money. I think that's where I start to question a little things because unlike the rest of the Big Ten, we don't have the most NIL money. But if this guy really wants to come to Maryland and we land him, I think that puts us on the map and could honestly help bring in other recruits.
Yeah, if Kevin Willard goes from having a really good class last year to landing Derek Queen the next year, then we're talking about he's doing stuff right now at the program, and it's absolutely going in the right direction. And then you look at Jaden Mustaf. He just released his top 6 the other day, and Maryland did make it. He's a 4-star guard. He actually has a connection with Mike Jones because he did go to DeMatha as a freshman.
Yeah.
And Mike Jones is one of the new coaches on the Maryland basketball staff who used to be the head coach of DeMatha, who's really going to help with DMV recruiting. But Jaden Mustaf did go to DeMatha as a freshman, but now is playing for Overtime Elite. But he's a 4-star guard, and his top 6 included other schools like Florida State, Georgia Tech, Indiana, NC State, and, of course, Maryland. Maryland's definitely in the mix. I don't know if we're going to get him, but he would be a really good player to get, especially after Jameer Young is going to be gone next year, and he can step right into the shoes and start probably right away for Jameer Young.
Yeah, I think it's like a domino effect. Like, if we can get Derek Queen, I think a lot of these players will be like, if Derek Queen's going, then why wouldn't we? So I think definitely Jaden Mustaf could come in and he could be a huge impact player. Like you said, Jameer Young's going to leave. There's going to be a spot. You're going to have Deshaun Harris-Smith. You're going to have Jamie Kaiser. You're going to have Julian Reese senior year. You're going to need more people, more guards. So that'd definitely be cool. But going on to the next person, Connie Roos, 23rd nationally ranked player. He's 6'7". He's a 4-star power forward. Top 5 is Georgia, Maryland, Mississippi State, Georgetown, George Mason. Obviously, more offers will come in, but he's from IMG Academy. I mean, why wouldn't you want this guy? Like, he's a stud. He's 6'7". He can shoot. He can rebound. He'd be awesome. But, I mean, you can't get all these guys, but hopefully we can. So I would really like to see him, but I'm sure his offers will start to pick up as his year goes on.
Yeah, for sure. And then you look at Malachi Palmer, who's out of Maryland. He's hovers around the hundreds, depending on where you look, but he's a 4-star guy. He's from, like I said, he's from Maryland. He's a really good player, and he looks like he's really warm to Maryland. If there's one player for sure going to Maryland, it looks like it's going to be him and also Derek Queen, of course. But I'm looking for the first domino of the 24 class to fall because none have fallen yet. And we know we're going to get some guys, but we just don't know the caliber of players we're going to get. We hope we get Derek Queen. And you can't forget about Boogie Fland, who actually visited a couple weeks ago, who's a 5-star player, has offers from everywhere, Kentucky, Duke, you name it. Yeah, but, I mean, he did visit Maryland, so maybe we have a chance. I'm not going to say it's for sure, but
yeah,
I mean, 247 has us as warm on him, so maybe we can land him. I doubt it. It's the type of thing where maybe Derek Queen, we land him, like you said, it's a domino effect, and maybe we can end up with Boogie Flan and Derek Queen, and we have one of the best classes in the 24 class.
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, NIL makes it really tough for teams like Maryland to compete with, like, the Dukes of the world, Kansas, I mean, even Gonzaga, like those kind of schools, like Texas, the big-time schools. So it puts Maryland in a position where it's kind of unfair, but it just is what it is. Honestly, for me, I feel confident about Derek Queen coming to Maryland. If we can get Derek Queen and maybe one or two other of these guys, I think you have probably a top 10 recruiting class in the country, which Maryland really hasn't had in a while that I can remember. I always just remember also Mark Turgeon, the old coach, would always struggle to get guys locally, which was kind of a problem. We never got Hunter Dickinson, for instance. We missed out on him. He almost came to Maryland this year, but NIL, of course, stepped in and he went to Kansas. So if we can land a guy like Malachi Palmer from Mount Zion Prep, that'd be awesome. I don't really see many Maryland guys committing to Maryland. So that'd be honestly something new that we haven't seen in a really long time.
No, yeah, I totally agree. We're going to have to continue to recruit, but I think this can be a really good class potentially. And if you pair that with last year's class, there could be something cooking, especially if none of them leave for the draft, which I don't think any of them will for the 23 class. You keep those guys and you add in a whole new slot of players. We don't have to get the 5-star guys, the one and dones. You don't necessarily even want those guys. We're seeing today's game, the Kentuckys of the world are struggling to get back to the big dance. Even a Duke, I mean, of course they're getting the top guys, but when you can put together a medium top 20 class like what we had last year, that's not even medium. That's a very good class with 3 4-star guys that are going to be in college for 2, 3, 4 years. Then that's where you start building a program, and your program starts to look like a Baylor, for instance, who wins a national championship, that type of program. And I think that's what we're headed towards. We might not have a bunch of one and done, but that's not necessarily what you want. You want veterans in college basketball. That's how you win in March. You don't win with one and dones nowadays. So I think that's what excites me the most about the direction of the program.
Yeah, I think the chemistry, like you said, with Duke and Kentucky is always changing because it seems like at least 4 or 3 starters of those teams are just leaving to go to the NBA. So in recent history, that really hasn't worked. I mean, you saw UConn. UConn was you saw their chemistry. They played together. They played as a family. It worked well. And like you said, Baylor, these guys aren't leaving like one and dones. They're staying in college. They want to win a championship. So I think Maryland's in the right direction. We've made March Madness the past, I think, 3 or 4 years in a row. We've played Alabama, of course, the last 2 years, which has been really unlucky when you play against Brandon Miller and guys who can just shoot the lights out of the ball. So I think Maryland's headed into the right direction. But if we can land Derek Queen, I would be satisfied, honestly, with this recruiting class if we just land him. Obviously, we're going to get more. We're honestly going to get more than just him. But if we got Derek Queen, like I said earlier, I think more players would want to come like play with him. He has that effect, I think. Hopefully we get him. I'm excited for this year. I'm excited for the future of Maryland basketball, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. That's all we have for today, but subscribe for more and listen to us on any of the podcast apps. And thank you for listening to Locked On Terps.